All right, so for tomorrow's mini quiz on expressions and equations, just a few reminders as we go through here. Again, when we're trying to simplify, if I ever see parentheses, I do want to take care of that, except on rare occasion when there might be a fraction I need to get rid of if I'm doing an equation. But otherwise, I'm just going to be multiplying through as I do these. Now again, be careful with your signs. They matter. You know, a positive and a negative gets me set. Or, x times x squared. And again, just don't lose parts. 5x times 3 is 15x. You'd be surprised at the number of times I see people forget that last x in there. So before I can just circle this, wrap it up, and call it done, look for where I may have some like terms. Okay. And normally, and I'm not going to count off if you don't, normally we put terms in degree order. So we go from the biggest exponent down to where it's just a constant, just a number. So I'm going to start with 5x squared. 3x and 15x, again, we're just combining. We're not multiplying. So just leave that as x. And then minus 12. Nothing else goes together. I'm set. But like I said, if you wrote 18x plus 5x squared minus 12, it's the same thing. You'd still get that right. So there, nothing to solve. Here, evaluate. So again, I'm taking that negative 4, that's my x. I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to take this negative 2, that's my y value. I'm going to plug it in. And whenever you're substituting, remember, please, please, please use parentheses, because what tends to happen otherwise is that people tend to forget about that, and it can change signs on things. And we don't want to change signs on things where we're not supposed to. So get those locked in there, and then I've got to follow my PEMDAS, my order of operations. Exponents have to come first. What's negative 4 in parentheses squared equal? 16. And again, if you can do multiple steps, that's okay. Here, the multiplying would come next. 16 times 4 is 64. Negative times negative. Negative times negative is positive. And then I can finish it off. So again, the biggest part of this first quiz is going to be detail work, because a lot of this is stuff you've done before. It's just making sure we're set. Okay, solve the equation, show all work, at least show some. Because the more work you show me, if you do make a mistake, I do partial credit on things. So like, let's say, for instance, when you distributed this, instead of making it minus 6, which is what it should be, you make it plus 6. But you do the rest of the problem beautifully, but you messed up back on the first step. Okay? If this was like a 3-point question, I'd only take like 1/2 out of 3 because you did everything else right. I don't want to punish you for, making one mistake and it just happens to mess everything else up. So the more work you show, the better. Once we get distributed, if there's any like terms that are on the same side of the equals, now it becomes your choice. If I want to get all the x's together, I can. If I want to move the numbers, I can. I personally like to get my variables taken care of first, and I also like my variable terms to be positive. It's just a little thing I have going here. Doesn't mean you can't get to the right answer if you do it a different way. Once I get here, all my x's are together. And do not flip out if you get to the end and you're like, It's not going in nice. It's coming out a decimal. Don't worry about it. Divide by 7. If it comes out as a decimal, just leave it as a fraction. Okay, I'd very much prefer this over like 4.8. Trying to think what it is, 4.71 or whatever it happens to be like that. And just as soon you leave it in that fraction form when we get there. Now, in this next one, my second number 2, nice numbering. Anybody remember the hint I gave when we're working on proportions before I even start doing anything? Yeah, I should put parentheses around my quantities where I see the pluses and minuses, because then when I go to do my cross multiplying, that 5 and that 9 are actually going to get distributed to both terms, not just the first one, which is very easy to do if you don't see those. So we'll do our distributing.
It's just pretty much just cross multiply and just simplify.
Yep, it's just cross multiplying and then simplifying it out, and now it's a lot like number 1 was, where I'm going to work on getting all of my variable terms to one side. And again, I'm going to get an answer that doesn't come out real pretty, but that's okay. Divide by 4. And I did space things out a little bit better on the quiz itself to give you a little more room to play with here. But if some of you sometime get something extra like that going and you really write big, if you want to attach a piece of paper to your quiz because you like writing bigger or with lines, that's fine too. All right. Ugh. Number 3. Got to get rid of those fractions. Okay. We need to multiply through by the LCD to be able to do that.
6.
Bigger than 6. 12. Okay. Because if I started counting by 2s and 4s and 6s, 12's the first number that's going to show up. And if you just blank on this tomorrow, here's your emergency backup plan. Multiply the different denominators together. It'll work. It's just going to be bigger numbers. We have a calculator, so it's okay. So, but 12's our best option here. And again, when I distribute, what I'm doing is I'm multiplying that 12 times all of my numerators. And then whatever I get, I divide by the denominator. So 12 times 5 is 60. Divided by 6 would be 10x. 12 times 1 is 12. Again, don't forget the minus, the negative there. So negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. 12 times 1 is 12. Divided by 4 is 3. 12 times 7 is 84. Divided by 2 is 42. And again, now it's just like the rest of them. It's funny how they all look so different at the start, and then we do like one step, now they all look the same again. So let's see. Let's get that 3x out of there. Man, I'm getting a lot of them out here that are just kind of... not coming out pretty, but it's actually just the way that it is with these. Sometimes they do not come out nice. But again, just keep reminding yourself on the fractions. Multiply the numerators by your LCD, and then divide by the denominator all the way through. And that'll get you to the right answer on those. And then the last couple on this side are just like what you basically were doing in the homework last night, working through solving for a specific variable. Now again, We want to be visual. Wherever I see my variable, I'm going to box that in, and it just tells me anything that's not in the box needs to go away. So you're like, okay, well, the 4 needs to go away. So I can do that. Again, I can't put the -4 from the 7. The 7 has a p, the 4 doesn't. And then if I'm solving for b, divide by q. Perfection. And I'm set. So again, keep,
I'm just asking, you can't just do like b equals like 7p divided by q plus 4.
All right, let's see. Now, here'd be my dilemma. If I divided right away by the q, I'd also have to be dividing this 4 by q. So that would change things around a little bit. If I tried on that one, let's take a look at it that way. If I decided here that I was going to divide first, here's the dilemma that I'm going to get myself into. If I tried doing this to get that out of there, that q, though, since this plus gives it another term, puts this here. Now this gets a little more interesting, because now I'm going to have to go through and find a common denominator, and it's going to take me longer to be able to get there with things. So I'd really suggest any chance you get when you see one of your terms and you can isolate it right away, do that before you start. Whatever's furthest away makes it easier to be able to solve for it, rather than trying to go through and divide first. Because I'll even kind of express that with this next one that we do too. Like here, okay, I've got this b by itself. I can't just add the 7 right away because right now it's over a fraction. So my outlook always is going to be whatever is furthest away from my variable. I want to pick away from the furthest stuff and then get closer and closer as I do this. So if I see the fraction, I multiply to get rid of it first because the fractions just divide. And then I look and I go, okay, I'm trying to get b alone. Yeah, because that's what's not in the box. That -7 is what I need to get rid of. It's not in my inner circle here. So 3t plus 7 is 4b. And again, if you need to, let's get visual. I want b by itself. Oh, 4's not in the box anymore. To get that 4 out of there, which I'm multiplying by, I can divide that way. So b is going to be 3t plus 7 over 4. And again, if you want to break it up into separate fractions, 3/4 t plus 7/4, you can, but it's definitely not necessary. Any other issues on the front before we go a flipping here? Not so bad so far. Okay. So over we go. Oh, more of these guys. All right. Solve for b. Ooh, multiple b's. So let's see here. Let's see if we get them on the same side if this fixes things. So I minus my 2b. So I want all the b's together. 6b minus 2b is 4b. So notice, just by getting them all to one side took care of my first problem. I don't have b's in two places anymore because I can't do that anyway. And now again, it just becomes the same game that it was before. If it's not in the box, it goes away. Plus 10. See ya. And then just do my dividing. But again, combining like terms, distributing, those types of things that come first, most of the time are adding and subtracting and then are division. There's kind of a pattern that you start to see with these. So, ooh, the last one. This is kind of like I say this for last. This is like the expert one. Because you're like, okay, solve for A. I need all the A stuff together. So I notice over here there's a term with A. Over here there's another term with A, but there's a B here. So here's what I think's a good idea. I'm going to get all my A terms to one side. Doesn't matter which side. It's just a little less work doing it this particular way. So then I got to stop and think for a minute. I'm like, uh-oh. I still have two A's. I can't do this because then A is part of my answer, and we've talked about how I can't do that. What do I have to do to fix my A dilemma? What is our newly introduced Algebra 2 F word? Factor. Okay? Whenever I can't get rid of a variable term just by bringing them all to the same side like we did on 8, I'm going to have to do a little bit of factoring. So I look and I say, okay, both of these have an A, so I can pull that out. Now my job becomes, okay, what do I times A by to get each of those terms back? So A, okay, I already got the A. Looks like I need an M here. Okay. I already got the A. Looks like I need the -4. And I can make sure I did it right by just taking a second and redistributing it. A times M is AM. Okay. A times -4 is -4A. All right. But now I've only got one A. That's good. Because now, what am I doing? I want to solve for this. What am I doing with it? I'm multiplying it by M-4. Yep, we got to divide. Another reason we like the parentheses, because then we're not tempted to like try to add 4 or something like that. And I'm set. So I'm going to challenge you thinking through these a little bit. You know, there's a lot of different options you've got. Factor, combine like terms, distribute, add, subtract, multiply, divide. Just take it slow and just keep thinking, what's the opposite to get my variable by itself? All right, last one. A car company charges $25 a day for a rental, 95 cents per mile driven. Write a model to represent the situation, or maybe we could say to represent the total cost. Might be another way I could put it. Define your variables. Okay, let's make the expression first, and then we can kind of figure out what this variable thing is. So I start from the front. I go, okay, a car company charges $25 per day for a rental. Now, what if I rent it for more than one day? Is it only going to cost me $25? No, it changes depending on the number of days I rent it. So it's going to cost me $25 times the number of days. If I rent it for 5 days, it's 25 times 5. If I rent it for 1, it's 25 times 1. So then I'm like, okay, plus they charge me 95 cents a mile. So again, let's get creative. We'll use M for miles here. And that's going to equal how much I'm spending on my rental. So if you had a problem and the next question was, if I rent it for 8 days and drive 1,000 miles, how much is it going to cost? I could figure that out by plugging in for those two, and I'd find out what this is. So when it says, what do the variables represent, I'm just explaining what each of those things are. So D, for instance, might be the number of days that I rented the car. Because again, I need to know what these variables are if I want to know where to plug numbers in if I had them. And then M would be the number of miles that have been driven, if I can spell here. And C would be my total cost. Now, you may use it different. If you put D as number of days, M as number of miles, and C as cost, that's fine. But just trying to look at it that way. So, I mean, as you can see, it's not going to be a long quiz, but it's one where you really have got to look for detail to make sure that you're going to be successful with it.